greatest of all time, Djokovic! Sinner!
Brilliant from the world number one. How about that reaction? Incredible.
You wouldn't expect a 39-year-old man, fresh off 5 hours and 15 minutes of brutal tennis, to walk onto center court and threaten the best player alive. But Novak Djokovic has never played by the rules everyone else follows. On Friday, Djokovic steps out to face Jannik Sinner, the world number one and defending Wimbledon champion, for a spot in the final. And if this feels familiar, that's because it is. These two stood in almost the exact same spot 12 months ago. Back then, Sinner won in straight sets, even while carrying an elbow injury, while Djokovic was still shaking off a bad fall from his previous round. This year, the story looks different on paper. Sinner arrives healthy, hasn't dropped a single set since his opening match went the distance, and looks like a man in complete control of his game. Djokovic, meanwhile, needed a medical timeout after tweaking his calf early in an epic quarterfinal against Felix Auger-Aliassime, a match that dragged on until nearly 11 at night before he finally closed it out. So, on paper, almost everything favors Sinner. His age, his fresher legs, and the head-to-head record between them. But here's the twist. The last time these two met at this exact stage of a Grand Slam at the Australian Open, it was Djokovic who walked away with the win. And that's the thing about writing off Novak Djokovic. People have been doing it for years, and he keeps finding ways to make them regret it. There's something else fueling him too. Djokovic is chasing history. He's just 2 wins away from a 25th Grand Slam singles title, a number that would finally break his tie with Margaret Court and stand alone at the top of the sport forever. That's not a small motivator. That's the kind of thing that gets a 39-year-old body to keep answering the call match after grueling match. Now, his road to the semifinal hasn't exactly been flawless. He got some help along the way in Melbourne earlier this year, benefiting from a walkover and an opponent's mid-match retirement to reach the Final Four. And here at Wimbledon, he's won only one of his 5 matches in straight sets. This has been a grind for him, not a coronation. But listen to how Djokovic talks about it. I still try to prove to myself and others that I'm able to compete with the best players in the world and beat them on the biggest stage, he said. That's what I've done in Australia. It's what I've done here. Hopefully, I can do it for a few more matches in London. That's not the language of a man who thinks he's finished. That's a man who still believes deeply that he belongs in this fight. And when you actually watch him play, it's hard to argue. Against Auger-Aliassime, even deep into that 5th set, with his body clearly compromised, his movement and his shot-making were still something close to astonishing. This is a player who has always had a strange, almost unfair durability. Rewind back to the 2012 Australian Open. Djokovic beat Andy Murray in a semifinal that lasted 4 hours and 50 minutes. He got exactly 1 day off. Then he went out and beat Rafael Nadal in 5 hours and 50 minutes, the longest men's singles final in tennis history. That's the kind of stamina that becomes legend. But that was 14 years ago. And last year, going into his semifinal against Sinner, even Djokovic admitted his tank was running half empty. Age catches up with everyone eventually, even him. Former British number 1 Tim Henman put it simply, grass is probably the least physically demanding surface in tennis, but grinding through best-of-5 matches will wear anyone down, and when you're 39, managing your energy becomes just as important as managing your opponent. Still, there are signs Djokovic has enough left in the tank. In their Australian Open semifinal back in January, he saved 16 of the 18 break points Sinner threw at him. His serve has held up well throughout this tournament too. So, the physical questions are real, but they're not settled. Then there's Sinner. He leads the head-to-head 5 wins to Djokovic's 6, and his own serve has been a weapon all tournament long. He's actually changed his technique recently shortening his ball toss and slowing down his motion, and it's paying off in a big way. Across his 5 matches so far, he's fired off 97 aces against just 16 double faults. Against the big-serving Jan-Lennard Struff in the quarterfinals, he won 84% of his first serve points. That's elite, controlled tennis. It wasn't always smooth for him, though. His first round was a genuine scare, a 5-set comeback against Miomir Kekmanovic that could have ended his tournament before it really began. Since then, he's only gotten stronger, growing more comfortable as the round have passed. He also handled the heat well against Struff, which matters because heat has been his kryptonite lately. At the French Open last month, he was knocked out in the second round in extreme temperatures. And at the Australian Open, he actually admitted he got lucky that the tournament's heat rule kicked in during his third-round match when temperatures soared past 40 degrees Celsius. As this tournament has gone on, Sinner has looked more and more relaxed. And just like Djokovic, he's had 2 full days to recover since their quarterfinal matches on Wednesday. In his own words, every match against Djokovic feels different. Even when I had this small streak with him, I felt like every match has really its own story, Sinner said. Especially when you play on a surface like this, if you have a bad serving day, or you're not feeling the ball very well, it's going to be very, very tough. So here's where that leaves us heading into Friday. A defending champion who hasn't lost a set, who's serving like a machine, who's finally figured out how to handle the heat, going up against a 39-year-old who is exhausted, banged up, and somehow still standing between him and the final. Everything logical points to Sinner. The fitness, the momentum, the recent history between them. But logic has rarely been the deciding factor when Djokovic steps onto a big stage with history calling his name. He's done it in Melbourne this year. He's fought his way here at Wimbledon despite an injury scare and a schedule that would break most players half his age. The question isn't whether Sinner is the better player right now on paper. The question is whether Djokovic, once again, finds a way to make the numbers irrelevant. We'll find out on Friday whether the King still has one more chapter left to write, or whether this is finally the moment the torch gets passed for good.